Imagine a massive, ocean-going container ship. It is longer than 3 football fields, weighs over 200,000 tons, and carries a cargo worth a staggering $150 million, but right now, it is not in the water. Instead, it is suspended 30 feet in the air, resting on a series of concrete blocks inside a massive dry concrete basin. Around it, armies of workers in orange overalls look like ants as they blast away layers of sea grime and weld giant sheets of steel. To the casual observer, this is just a routine maintenance stop, a simple blue-collar garage for giant ships, but behind the scenes, a terrifying economic clock is ticking every single day this vessel sits here. It is costing its owner $80,000 in lost cargo revenue, plus another $50,000 in direct dockyard fees. The shipowner is desperate to leave, but they cannot. They are, quite literally, a hostage of the dirtiest, most capital-intensive, and least understood business in global commerce, the commercial dockyard. What most people see as a simple repair yard is actually a high-stakes, geographic chokepoint that holds the entire global supply chain by the throat. Over the next few minutes, we are going to peel back the steel layers of this invisible economic machine to discover how a business built on rust and saltwater can command some of the most aggressive profit margins in modern finance. We will reveal the hidden psychological leverage dockyards hold over international shipping lines, the silent fee structures that turn basic repairs into goldmines, and the regulatory moats that make it almost impossible for new competitors to ever challenge them. To understand the genius of this business, we must first look at what happens the moment a ship enters the dry dock gates. Most people assume that when a shipowner needs a repair, they simply shop around, compare prices, and pick the best deal. That is how you fix a car or a truck, but a cargo ship is not a car. It is a floating corporation, subject to a brutal regime of international laws, insurance mandates, and physical realities every 5 years by international maritime law. Every merchant ship on Earth must undergo a special survey. This is not a simple inspection. The ship must be pulled completely out of the water to check its hull, propeller, and rudder, no exceptions, no delays. If a ship misses its survey date, its insurance is immediately invalidated, and it is legally barred from entering any major port on the planet. This single regulatory rule creates a guaranteed, recurring, and completely non-negotiable demand for commercial dockyards. Shipowners do not choose to go to a dockyard, they are forced to, and once that ship enters the dry dock, and the massive steel gates close behind it, the entire power dynamic shifts, the water is pumped out, the vessel settles onto its wooden blocks, and the shipowner's leverage evaporates. Think about it. If a mechanic starts overcharging you halfway through a car repair, you can simply pay them for their time, hook your car up to a tow truck, and take it somewhere else. But how do you tow a 200,000-ton vessel that has no water beneath it? You can't, once the ship is high and dry. The dockyard owner holds absolute, physical, and legal custody of the asset. This is where the real business begins. Most people believe dockyards make their money from heavy labor, from the grinding, welding, and painting. But that is the illusion. In reality, the actual metalworking is a low-margin, highly competitive service. The real money comes from what the industry calls occupancy and infrastructure fees. Think of a commercial dry dock like a highly specialized, ultra-premium parking lot. The moment the gates close, the dockyard starts charging for everything, and we mean everything. Do you want electricity to keep the ship's systems running while the main engines are off? That will be $20,000 a day for the hookup alone, plus a massive markup on the actual power used. Do you need to flush the ship's waste tanks? That requires a specialized environmental disposal fee that can easily run into 6 figures. Need a crane to lift a single spare part onto the deck? The dockyard charges by the hour for crane rental, at rates that would make a Silicon Valley lawyer blush. It is the classic printer and ink business model, scaled up to industrial proportions. The dry dock itself is the printer, sold at a reasonable rate to get the ship inside. The ancillary services, the shore power, the waste disposal, the crane usage are the ink cartridges, and the shipowner has no choice but to pay. Because every day of delay costs them more in lost shipping contracts than the dockyard's inflated fees. But why doesn't someone just build a cheaper dockyard nearby and undercut these prices? Surely, in a free market, high profits attract new competitors. This is where we hit the massive, almost impenetrable, physical and regulatory barrier to entry. To build a modern commercial dockyard, you don't just need land. You need deep waterfront land near major shipping lanes. This kind of real estate is incredibly scarce and heavily protected. The environmental permits alone can take a decade to secure. Governments are highly reluctant to approve new dockyards because of the heavy pollution, the paint runoff, the hazardous waste, and the noise. Then, there is the capital expenditure. A single modern floating dry dock or gravity basin can cost upwards of $150 to $200 million to construct. And that is before you buy the heavy cranes, the dredging equipment, and the waste treatment facilities. This creates a massive economic moat. Existing dockyards, many of which were built decades ago when environmental laws were lax and land was cheap, enjoy a virtual monopoly in their geographic regions. They do not have to worry about a new startup popping up down the river, because the local government simply won't allow it. But the business model is even more resilient than it looks. Because it possesses a rare financial superpower, it is highly countercyclical. When the global economy is booming, shipping lines make massive profits, and they flood dockyards with orders to keep their vessels in top shape. But what happens when the economy crashes? When global trade slows down and shipping rates plummet, you might think dockyards would starve, but they don't. When shipping lines can no longer afford to run their vessels, they have to put them into layup. This is the maritime equivalent of putting a car into long-term storage. But you cannot just park a massive cargo ship in the middle of the ocean and walk away. It needs a safe harbor, a constant supply of shore power to prevent rust, regular hull cleaning and security. And who provides all of this? The commercial dockyards during downturns. Dockyards transition from repair hubs into high-density, premium storage facilities, collecting steady, recurring cash flow from shipowners who are waiting for the market to recover. Whether the global economy is sailing smoothly or sinking fast, the dockyard always gets paid. This remarkable stability is why institutional investors, infrastructure funds, and private equity firms have quietly been buying up family-owned dockyards around the world. They recognize that dockyards are not just industrial workshops. They are essential, yield-generating infrastructure. They are the gatekeepers of global trade, operating with captive customers, high regulatory barriers, and massive pricing power. But this business is not without its silent, lurking threats. The greatest risk to a commercial dockyard is not a loss of customers, but a catastrophic operational mistake. If a dockyard crew miscalculates a ship's center of gravity during the docking process, the vessel can tip over inside the dry dock. When this happens, it doesn't just damage the ship, it can completely destroy the concrete dry dock basin itself, rendering the entire facility useless for months or even years. Furthermore, the shift toward larger, more complex vessels, like LNG carriers and massive cruise liners, requires constant, expensive upgrades to the dockyard's infrastructure. If a yard fails to invest in larger docks and more advanced technology, they risk becoming obsolete, left to service only smaller, low-margin coastal vessels. Yet, for those who manage these risks, the rewards are immense. As we look to the future, the economics of owning a dockyard are about to get even more lucrative. A wave of new international environmental regulations